first ever show on Daily Puck Talk. It's really cool to have you all on here. And, it's been a really long off season, and I know you guys are all excited for hockey. So for those of you that don't know me, I've done some shows on other websites. My name is Warren. My screen name is BillsFan777 across the sites. So you guys may recognize my name. I'm here today. I'm with Drew. You guys may know him as Astukas from RotoGrinders chat, and screen name on FanDuel is Clyde Bixby. Am I correct?
Yeah, Clyde Bixby won on FanDuel, Clyde Bixby everywhere else.
All right, well, there you go. So, Drew, I guess tell these guys about yourself just a little bit, just to, gain their trust before we start.
Yeah, you guys have seen my work on Daily Puck Talk, and I also write pretty regularly for FantasyWire.com, doing both NHL and MLB there.
Okay, cool. Is my camera on, by the way? Can you see me okay?
You're going in and out. All right, can you guys see Warren?
Sorry, guys. Nothing like a first show without a few technical difficulties. No video, just sounds, eh? Damn. Hang on just one sec.
Yeah, I don't know why you're not coming up, Warren.
Okay, there we go. You guys see me now? Nice, there we go.
No.
I'm here. I see myself.
I can see you, but apparently they can't.
Okay, well, they're behind because they're it's a 45-second delay. So anyway, you guys will see me very soon. Get excited. Anyway, before we get into the slate, I guess it's pretty important to kind of establish the strategy. It's October. A lot of people here, they play NFL, they play NBA, and October is kind of the month in between. And I guess our goal is to maybe turn a lot of these people into regular players throughout the whole year, help grow the NHL industry, and really get people to want to play this while NBA and NFL are going on. So hopefully what we can do is maybe give you a little guideline on how to build lineups, so you're not just blindly taking our advice, clicking guys in lineups and not seeing the results. Because I'm sure you'd agree, Drew, that if you just know the good plays but don't know how to build a lineup, it's still going to be pretty hard to win money in this. I mean, with all the stacking that goes on and mini stacking and pairing guys who are on the power play. So we'll definitely get into a little bit of that, but I'm sure you'd agree with me on that it's not just blind picking.
Yeah, like any sport. I mean, you can go to any website and get the daily plays or the best value plays, but I think the real skill comes in knowing how to build lineups and knowing what positions are scarce and where you got to pay up and just how to handle that. And that doesn't get talked about a lot, so it's a good skill to learn.
Yeah, for sure. So, I know that you've written an article on this site. It's a kind of fun, for lack of better terms, and you kind of discussed, I guess, the roster creation on FanDuel and DraftKings. So maybe talk about that a little bit. There's a lot of people here, so maybe talk about your different strategies in building a cash lineup or GPP lineup. They're kind of lineup on DraftKings and FanDuel, and then I'll touch on my strategy after you're done.
Yeah, so for NHL, the big thing, whether you're playing cash or GPP, is correlation. Every goal has an assist for the most part, and I mean, you want to get if you're gonna get one guy scoring, you kind of want to be involved with the guys who are going to help him score and get the assists, because if you know a line's going to score, it's hard to just pick the one guy who's going to get the goal, and you're better off taking two or maybe even all three on FanDuel. And that's where the scoring differences come in. So on FanDuel, you have the plus minus, which makes it really effective to just stack a whole line. If they score at even strength, you're getting +3. You're getting a +1 from each of the three forwards. You're probably getting the goal, and you could be getting 1 or 2 assists on top of that. So I mean, you're looking at You're looking at 10 points easily right there. And if you can get 2 lines that score a goal, you're already in good shape. So correlation's big. DraftKings, there's no plus minus, so it's more about guys who shoot. But I mean, you still want guys playing together because the goals and the assists, they're linked. So just making sure your lineup's correlated as much as possible, and you're not playing guys against at least on FanDuel, you can't be, if a line's going to face another line of the other team, it doesn't make sense to play both because it's very unlikely that both will score and avoid minuses.
Yeah, that's for sure. And there's many ways to look to avoid that. I mean, It's not simply just looking at two teams line one and saying, oh, they're going to play each other. A lot of teams use second and third lines to, I guess, match the other team's top line as a more defensive role. So it's definitely good to look into that, and we'll always touch on that in our articles, maybe just talk about some competition. I guess, for example, it's very likely that the Sedin twins and Brandon Sutter will be facing Mark Giordano and Dougie Hamilton, and that's usually a fade for me. So just, I guess, the competition stuff like that is really important. But I agree. If you have two lines that are facing each other on FanDuel, you're kind of just shooting yourself in the foot, because you get a line that scores a goal and you lose 3 points from the minuses on the other line. So you're not really gaining much, and you're really capping your upside unless all the damage is done on the power play. But that's just making a low percentage play even more low percent. So it's definitely good to factor in the plus minus. And I know there's also penalty minutes on FanDuel. I know both of us aren't a very huge fan, but do you ever look at guys who could possibly, not talking guys like Colton Orr, but do you ever look at guys who actually can contribute offensively and might have like a rivalry with another team? Like, how much do you value penalty minutes, I guess, when you're building your lineups?
I can't say I've ever even considered anything like that in my lineup. I mean, I guess you can always throw like the proverbial rivalry game and expect like a 10-minute major, but it seems like a pretty dumb thing to try to chase. So I just focus on the best players, and if they get 2 or 4 penalty minutes, then I guess that helps.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of a dumb stat, and I've seen GPPs altered, I guess, from penalty minutes. But sometimes there's a rivalry. A guy hit someone, 4 months ago. Team didn't like it, and if you remember the rivalry, if you can get a free fight or something, free 5 minutes, and it's often pretty predictable in certain cases. It's definitely not a bad place to start, but definitely not something we're going to be writing up here on Daily Puck Talk too often, unless it's just something so painfully obvious. But I guess we look at other stuff. I know both of us are pretty into the analytical field. I know some of our writers aren't as much into it, and some of them are, but I think there's a lot of different ways you can approach hockey research. But one thing that I love to look at is War on Ice. It is a website that basically just shows possession numbers, pretty much anything you want to find. But in a nutshell, the things I like to look for that apply to DFS are, I guess, Corsi percentage, score-related Corsi, score-adjusted Corsi, and then you could look at a whole lot of things, just team power play shot attempts for 60 minutes. So if you had to pick 3 stats that you can only look at, maybe to help simplify something for these newer players, what would you tell them to look for?
On a team level, Corsi for, Corsi against. I prefer the score adjusted and based on 60 minutes, so you kind of get an even playing field for all teams. Another thing is high danger shots and scoring chances. They're pretty similar. If you look on War and Ice, they'll have the exact descriptions. But for anyone a lot of the people that are new to Corsi, their biggest flaw in it is that all shots aren't created equal. So high danger shots and scoring chances are ones that come right in the home plate area, right in front of the net. So if you look at those, like, I guess they're the higher quality chances that might diminish some of the shot impact of the location that people would be worried about. So I'd probably look at Corsi, high danger, and scoring chances.
Yeah, absolutely. I think those are good stats to look at, and it's always a good thing to watch the games as well, because a lot of bad players can be put in situations where they have these chances, but they're just not as good as some of the better players. So talent level just from watching the game as well, but oftentimes the players who are putting up high volume of shot attempts and high volume of scoring chances, you're usually going to find a correlation between them being a very good player when you watch a game as well. But I think these are great replacements to watching the game, but I definitely think that when you're watching a game, you can still pick up certain things that you can't pick up when you're looking at numbers. But for the most part, we can't watch all 15 games a night or however many there are going to be on a slate. And it's definitely good to look at these. I'd say they probably cover 85 to 90% of what I look for in a game anyway. So I think these stats are important. And we pretty much covered on, I guess, the stats and lineup building. If you have nothing else to add, we can get right into the games tonight.
Let's get into it.
Okay, perfect. So first game of the year. I'm a Maple Leafs fan. It's been a long 10 years. We play the Montreal Canadiens tonight. The years may continue to grow up difficulty, I guess. But, first game of the year, you never really know what to expect. The Leafs traded Phil Kessel to the Pittsburgh Penguins. It's a new look team. They're a little bit rebuilt. A lot of role players that have been journeymen throughout the league have found their way onto the Leafs, guys like Brad Boyes. And, I think we're going to see a lot of guys have worse seasons. Tyler Bozak, one of the worst players I've seen, especially when he's not playing with Phil Kessel. James Van Riemsdyk, depends where he's playing, but if he's just playing with Bozak, I think that without Kessel, he's going to bring both of them down. So I really don't like the Leafs too much as a team. I think that Nazem Kadri and Joffrey Lupul are really the only viable guys on this roster, but for the most part, that's not even something I'm looking at on a 4-game slate at this point. So for me, I'm looking at the Montreal Canadiens tonight. Tell me if you agree, and which guys do you like from Montreal, and if you disagree, which guys do you like from Toronto as well tonight?
I think Montreal is definitely the favorite here for a reason. Toronto is not going to be good this year. That much is a given. But I'm also not sure they're going to be as much of a disaster as people are making them out to be. They do have some talent. I think the defense is going to be better without Carlisle there. The goaltending should be at least competent. And I really think it's hard to see a Mike Babcock coach team just ending up at the bottom of the standings. I'm not saying they're going to make the playoffs, but I think they'll actually keep games close this year. And Daily Faceoff had, I don't know if this is going to be true tonight, but they had Kadri with Van Riemsdyk and Brad Boyes in the first line. And if that's the case, I don't mind that, to be honest. JVR is all right, and if you can get him away from Bozak, I think he has a chance to be productive this year. But I'm not sure I would use them going against Carey Price. So yeah, I agree with you that it's Montreal. The first line is Pacioretty. That's going to be the one that everyone owns. But I'm actually really liking Montreal's second line. They got Alex Galchenyuk at center now. He played wing most of last year, and they got Alex Semin from Carolina, who I think is one of the most underpriced players tonight. Before last year, he had been a perennial 20-goal scorer, 3 shots per game for most of his career. And then last year, it just fell apart. Healthy scratch, third line, you just couldn't get it together. But, I'm excited to see what he does in the top 6 role in Montreal.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting to see. This guy kind of has this connotation as being lazy, doesn't show up in the playoffs. But you know what? You look at this guy's career and you look at what he's done. And besides last year, he's been a phenomenal player. And he was a point-per-game guy after the lockout season. The year after, he was putting up good numbers. And, one bad year, it's not going to really make me look at the guy and say he's finished. He's still not that old. And I think that playing in a new place, I do agree, it could rejuvenate his career as well. And he's probably going to see none of Dion Phaneuf. So I think that he's going to see a lot more of the offensive-minded guys like Riley and Gardner and some of the unproven guys at the bottom of the Leafs defensive depth chart. And he might see a lot of Tyler Bozak as well, and that's always a good recipe. So that second line is definitely sneaky, and I do like the fact that it looks like Semin is going to be getting some power play time. And this is a guy who's always been a great sniper, so I do agree with you. I think he's really good value tonight. Not sure if he's as good a value as Teuvo Teravainen, but I think that he's pretty close to him at this point. But so you're really leaning the second line, including Price over the first line, because I'm really liking Gallagher and Pacioretty, that combo. I'm just not sure if I'm willing to pay up for them. So I guess break the tie for us even more, I guess, with the competitions.
Yeah, I'm a pretty big Gallagher fan. He shoots a lot, which is always good, and getting him in Pacioretty is obviously a good thing. That line's going to probably be slightly more productive, but if you're looking to save money or go with a low-owned option, I think the second line will be really under-owned compared to what they should be. And I think that at least with the second line, you can just take Galchenyuk and Semin. You probably don't need Lars Ellers as part of your stack there.
Yeah, I agree. I think for Montreal and play in this game, I'm looking at Galchenyuk and Semin. I don't mind the top line, but considering their price, I kind of feel the same way as you. I like them. I think they'll be productive, but if you're stacking that top line, you're really taking a big hit out of your cap room, and I don't think they're going to be that great tonight. I think the Leafs are going to be a bit of a better team this year in terms of just limiting Corsi attempts for 60. Mike Babcock team it's usually a lot more disciplined than a Randy Carlisle team. And I just think the Leafs are going to play a little more defensive-minded throughout this season. So I like the first line a little. I like the second line a little. I'm not crazy high on either of them, and I'm fading the Leafs entirely. And I think there's just better options in the other games.
Yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at right now. I mean, under Babcock last year, the Wings were the second slowest team in the league in terms of Corsi pace. So that's just total shots per game from both teams. And it was the Wings and the Devils were just so much slower than everyone else that it didn't make sense to target them on either side of their games most nights. I mean, I'm not sure if the Leafs have the talent to do that this year, but I think Babcock's going to at least push towards that, and the Leafs will be a lot slower than they were last year.
Yeah, absolutely. And New Jersey, that team was hardly even watchable, period. So Detroit, they're pretty much the slowest actual good team. And I know the Leafs don't have too much talent, but, it's easy to really value talent based on the last few years. You look at a team like Toronto where Riley and Gardner, these guys were pretty good prospects a few years ago. You look at Kadri, he's already considered a bust, but he's never had Mike Babcock's system working in his favor. He's often had terrible coaching, no system, and no structure, and no really defined role, as Carlisle would always just mix things up, and you never really knew what he was going to do next, and it usually didn't make much sense. So I think there's still some talent on this team. I think they're actually going to be able to play this system, and I think they're going to get better as the year goes on, but I do agree. I don't think they're a playoff team just yet.
Yeah, it's pretty crowded in the bottom of the East, but I think they'll be a lot better than they were last year, and I don't think they'll be as much of a joke this year.
No, definitely not. It starts some ownership up, but anyway, there's still 3 more games, and we're definitely going to want to have some time to fix our lineups up. So we're going to move on to the next one, and that game features last year's Stanley Cup champions. Well, pretty much 60% of them. They pretty much lost half their team this offseason. They still have the big guys in place, and that is the Chicago Blackhawks, and they play host to the New York Rangers. What is your feeling on this game, Drew?
I'm starting to rethink it, but right now I really don't have much from Chicago. I mean, I don't know if it's the Cup hangover, or the fact that they just got rid of so many guys, or I don't know. I'm not loving the options that they have tonight. I mean, I know they have some top 6 guys who are pretty cheap, like Teravainen, but I found myself with a lot more Rangers than Blackhawks tonight.
Interesting. I was actually looking at the Rangers side as well, but I was fading that top line. I have no interest in Rick Nash's line facing Taves, Hossa, likely a lot of Keith and Seabrook. I was looking more at the Rangers' second line with Chris Kreider, who I know he never puts up huge numbers, but I think he's a really talented player, and I think he's a good player. And he's kind of always been on my watch list for the last year or two as a guy who could just break out at any time. And, he doesn't need to be a 70 to 80 point player to be considered viable. I think that he's a guy that you can really look at his price tag right now and just kind of feel comfortable with him, knowing he's going to get a lot weaker competition considering the Blackhawks have lost a lot of depth. So I kind of do like that second line a lot. But I'm kind of more on Chicago's end. I still like Taves and Hossa a ton. And one thing that's different this year is that they didn't play the power play together last year. Marian Hossa was often on the second unit simply because Patrick Sharp was quarterbacking that top one. So I think that just the fact that they're going to be on the ice together, shorthanded, on power plays at even strength, it just makes that combo such a lethal weapon because you just get so much upside every time they're on the ice. So that combo is one of my favorites of the night. I know the matchup is not great, and I know Henrik Lundqvist struggling in October is not something that we can just assume is going to happen every year, but I kind of just think for their price and considering how good they are and how much they play together, that they're a really safe option for your cash games tonight.
Yeah, I mean, Host is a beast. Even at, I don't know, 35, 36, he's still unstoppable. I mean, I should probably increase my Chicago exposure now that I think about it. It just, I don't know. The lineup looks a lot weaker, but I agree that it's probably at home. I think they'll at least get the shots off. I'm not gonna. I know the Rangers are supposed to have a pretty good defense this year, but I'm not sure I'm buying that outside of McDonough. I mean, Girardi's Girardi. Yandel was not very good for them last year, at least defensively. So I think the Rangers are a bit overrated, but I don't know. This game is probably the toughest one of the night for me.
Yeah, I think both these teams kind of have a new look to them. I know the Rangers top 6 still looks pretty much intact, but I kind of want to see the Blackhawks play for a little bit. But just at that price, it's just so hard for me to really look away from Taves and Hossa, especially with that power play incentive, like I mentioned. And on the Rangers side, I'm still liking that second line with Kreider, Stepan. Not sure if I'm going to use Kevin Hayes. I don't think that's necessary. There's enough value tonight. And also really haven't mentioned Teravainen on Chicago. I know this guy's a pretty big prospect, and pretty much playing with Taves and Hossa is just an instant recipe for success. We saw 3 guys actually in the offseason who played with Taves and Hossa have their value boosted extremely. We saw Brandon Saad traded. We saw Patrick Sharp, who played a lot of time with them, and that was probably my favorite line in hockey for a while. And then we had Chris Versteeg, who was even pretty productive when playing with these guys on the top line. So pretty much it's just a magic pill. If you play with Taves and Hossa, you're going to be a good player. And Teravainen, there's no doubting his talent. He's not Andrew Shaw, who is originally slated to be on that top line at the start of the preseason. He's actually a guy who's got very good skill. And for his price, would you agree that he's also a really safe play if you don't want to maybe spend up on Taves and Hossa?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if Versteeg can produce in that role, I have full confidence that Teravainen can.
Yeah, Versteeg's kind of been off and on for a while, and he looked great whenever he played with those guys. I remember just using him every time and usually put up a point and get a few shots. And these guys are just so good that Teravainen at this price, if he plays with them for a while, I mean, where do you think he's going to be priced in a month? Maybe 6,000.
I mean, he'll be right up there, the same price they are in 2 weeks or 3 weeks.
That was a trick question. The site's never changed the pricing anyway. But if they were to change it, he should be 6,000 to 7,000 in a few weeks. But yeah, he's a bargain right now, and get on him while he's cheap. I think he's a great play, especially on FanDuel, where it's really hard to fit in guys like it is on DraftKings.
Yeah, hopefully that's not up as this year's Kucherov, where he's just 370 all season long.
Yeah, that was pretty hilarious. But I think that the sites, at least in October, hopefully will do a better job of keeping up with that this year. And I guess I had one more question about this game. Are you looking at either team's goaltender, or is this game kind of just a little bit uneasy for you to really trust a side to pick a goalie with?
I think Lundqvist is a great play in tournaments. I mean, no one's going to be on him because he's a road dog playing a great team. But I mean, I'll take an elite goalie in any matchup, if just to be contrarian at that point. But I mean, the payoff's big because Chicago's going to get 30 plus shots. So a good game for him gets you a pretty big score, and he's probably going to be really low on. So I think he should definitely be on your radar for tournaments. I'm not a big Crawford fan, so I probably won't have him at all.
I kind of like Crawford. I think he's kind of taken a lot of unnecessary heat, and I'm actually really looking forward to see how he does this year. I think this is the first time that the Chicago team on paper doesn't just blow you away. It doesn't look amazing, and I think he's actually going to have to step up and really play good hockey throughout the whole year for them to make the playoffs, actually, with this roster. So I'm curious how he does, but again, being curious doesn't mean I have to put him in GPP or cash lineups. I kind of just want to take a wait-and-see approach with this team. And for now, I think I'm just fading both goalies. I just have a lot of question marks with both teams and feel better taking the skaters on this team.
Yeah, I mean, there's just not really any goalies I love tonight, so I found myself diversifying a bit more and using guys like Lundqvist.
Yeah, that's fair. I definitely don't mind Lundqvist or Crawford, I guess, in a tournament. You can really make an argument for any goalie based on the logic you had, and it's not stupid logic because a low-owned goalie who faces a lot of shots and pulls out a win is going to really help you in a tournament. But for me, I know we kind of do this a bit different. I kind of like to take a goalie who I just think is more probable to win the game as opposed to face a lot of shots, and I kind of want my skaters to do the damage for me. But I definitely see merit to both sides, and I'm more of a cash game player, so I kind of just like taking the safe or quote unquote safe win. There's really no such thing in hockey, but the safer one, I guess I should say.
Yeah, most of my Lundqvist lineups are actually on ones I stack the Rangers with, which goes back to what I was talking about earlier about correlation. Because if the Rangers skaters do well, it's more likely that Lundqvist gets the win. So I still need one thing to happen there instead of multiple things, which I like to do for tournaments.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely think that there's a lot of interesting plays in this game, and I think that a lot of the question marks surrounding both teams may leave these teams underowned, and I think we could see a stack of Chicago line one, not with New York Rangers number two, but one of the two in a stack with another team that we might like. Could be a team that you see at the top of tournaments tonight. So anyway, there's still two more games. I think we should get to them. The third game of the night is in Calgary, second half of the Canadian doubleheader on CBC. That is Vancouver at the Calgary Flames. Probably the worst matchup, I'd say, on this slate in terms of quality teams. I know a lot of people love Calgary, and I know both of us love to rip on Calgary. And last year, it was pretty frustrating seeing this team continue to get 20 to 25 shots a night and somehow end up with 4 goals. It's probably because it seemed like they faced Edmonton every single night, or team with third game in 4 nights. I don't know. But regardless, this team had a really lucky year last year. I'm not saying Johnny Gaudreau and Sean Monahan aren't decent players, but considering, I guess, their shooting percentage, their possession numbers, we can't really expect to see those numbers again unless they've really improved as players in the offseason. So, but on the flip side, a lot of people are going to expect that production to continue, and Vancouver's not a very good team defensively. They're really not good on any aspect at this point. So you're kind of having an overvalued, overrated line, but that they might actually be in a good spot facing a team that's pretty vulnerable right now. So I'm kind of having trouble with how to handle this. So I'm going to let you take this away because I want to hear what you think.
Yeah, I mean, you summed that pretty good. I mean, Calgary is definitely going to be overrated for a lot of this year, at least the first part of this year. Because, I mean, last season's success, they do a few things well that I'll hit on in a bit, but, I mean, they're not going to shoot as well as they did last year, and I don't care what you say about shot quality or working hard. They're the first team to figure out that if you work hard, you can win games, apparently. I'm just not buying that. I do think they're a little – I mean, I think they're going to regress, obviously, but I think they're going to be better than teams we have seen in the past, like the Avalanche or Toronto, where they went on that magical PDO run the year before and then just crashed and burned the second year. At least Calgary, like this offseason, acknowledged that, hey, we still got a ways to go. Like, we know that we were a bit fortunate this year. We got to add some pieces, and they did that with Dougie Hamilton. The Bruins helped him out with that one, but they have Hamilton. For right now, the beginning of the season with Brody out, he'll just slot in that role. But once Brody gets back, that gives him a pretty good blue line. And I think that will help him. I mean, you can expect growth from Monahan, I think, at this age. Gaudreau too. Like, I don't think they're going to shoot as high, but if they create a bit more, and their shot percentage comes down, then the production can stay in the same ballpark. I think tonight you're right. They have to be in play. This game easily has the worst 2 goalies. Calgary decided to not start their best goalie, which makes things tough. But I'd say Ryan Miller is just not good at this point. He's old, and goalies do not age well at 35. So, I mean, I think the Flames first line, they're going to be so highly owned in cash that it'd be kind of crazy not to take them in this matchup, even while acknowledging that they're probably not going to be as good as they were last year.
Right. I think they're a good play. I think in tournaments they're an auto fade for me. I think they're going to be so over-owned. Even though it's a good matchup, I just think that I really kind of project all these guys out to be 55 to 60-point guys at best. And if you have a 55 to 60-point line, kind of at its peak, in my opinion at least, being 45 to 50% owned, I think there's a lot of merit in fading them and maybe looking in a different direction. But there's definitely 2 philosophies to this. I've always been a little bit more of an aggressive player. So at this point, I'm leaning towards fading Calgary, but I completely get the matchup. And if I thought that not many people would be on them, I'd probably be more inclined to take a risk and use Calgary, but I'm probably not going to do it. On the flip side, Mark Giordano, he's a great defenseman. He's a guy who shuts down other teams' top lines. His Corsi relative last year, I can't remember what it was, but I do remember for a long period of time it was off the charts. And he's likely going to face the Sedin line. So him and Dougie Hamilton on that line, does that take the Sedins out of play for you?
Pretty much. And if that doesn't, having Brandon Sutter on their wing just kills any value they had. Yeah, I mean, Giordano's nasty. the Flames when he's on the ice are actually a respectable team, and then when he's off it, they're just the Flames. So him coming back and having Dougie Hamilton as his partner is going to be big for them. And I agree with you that they'll probably see a ton of the Sedins, and that's probably enough. I mean, at least for cash, there's no reason to take the Sedins, even though they're facing Kariyama.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that Radim Vrbata is the really sneaky play here. I know he doesn't have great line mates, and I've seen a little bit of chatter about Bo Horvat, but from the second line, I think the guy from Vancouver to target has to be Vrbata with, facing the weaker competition, facing Chris Russell and Dennis Wideman, who last year when they were on the ice together allowed almost 70 shot attempts for 60 minutes, and probably half of those were blocked by Chris Russell. But still, a shot attempt is a shot attempt, and it's just a sign that teams are dominating possession when they're on the ice. And Vrbata is a guy who likes to shoot. He's the clear sniper on that line, and although Calgary doesn't take too many penalties, Vrbata is going to be the guy who's on the ice when this team has the power play. So he's got a very good even strength matchup. He's the shooter on that line, and he's going to have a lot of time on the power play as well. So he kind of just has the perfect storm for him tonight, and Carey Ramo in net. So definitely a good recipe. I want a guy shooting a lot when Carey Ramo is the guy you're shooting at. So my only question is if you can get behind Radim Vrbata in cash games.
Cash games, that's interesting. I mean, you're right. He is the shooter. He has the top power play. I'm probably often for cash games and just focusing on Calgary, to be honest. But I do think that the Vancouver second line is probably the best GPP play of the night, because the prices are, I mean, they're basically free besides Vrbata. Bo Horvat's been getting a lot of hype. I'm not even sure if I buy the hype. And then they got Sven Baertschi, who actually used to be on the Flames, playing on the team. So, yeah. And then, I mean, the big thing is, I'll just keep going. They're not going to have to face Giordano. As we talked about, Giordano is going to face the Sedin lines. And that means that it's going to be either Chris Russell and Dennis Wideman or Englund facing the second line. And that, I mean, Calgary without Giordano on the ice is just a terrible, terrible hockey team. And they even with their success last year, they proved that. I mean, everyone knows Russell for the block shots, but you can't block that many shots without allowing just a ton of shot attempts. And then, I mean, Carey Ramo, I honestly don't know why Calgary is starting him. Travis Yost had a really good article about this a couple weeks ago on TSN. Hiller's their best goalie, and they don't seem to realize that. And I mean, Ramo is just, I'm not convinced he's any good. So the only downside of stacking against Calgary is, like you mentioned, they just don't take penalties. They were shorthanded the fewest amount of times last year, and I mean, you want power play time, so, and you don't really get it against Calgary.
Yeah, for sure. My bad. My roommate came banging on the door there, so I missed part of what you said, but pretty sure we have the same philosophy on Calgary, so I'm assuming I agree with most of what you said as well. I think that we pretty much covered this game well, and I'm ready to move on to San Jose, LA. This is a game I wanted to talk about as well. And, you know, LA features probably my favorite line in hockey, probably a little bit unjustified since they're still, you know, not actually that amazing. But Jeff Carter, Tyler Toffoli, and Tanner Pearson, these guys are just really good players. And I think that they're a really good play tonight as they're not going to face Joe Thornton. And this line just dominates every time they're at home because they pretty much pick who they're going to face. And you notice last year, Jeff Carter was a point-per-game player at home. Tyler Toffoli, when he was at home, he was almost a point-per-game guy, and he was playing like 11 minutes up until the second half of the year when Daryl Sutter actually realized that this team was really good. So I think that Toffoli and Carter is the real primary stack of the night, and they're my favorite two players. And I also like Jonathan Quick a lot in net. So I think that LA is the top team tonight, especially that second line. I think that Gaborik and Kopitar are really going to have a tough time dealing with, I guess, you know, Joe Thornton's line, and they're going to have to focus more on defensive responsibility. So do you agree with me on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not as high on Los Angeles as you are, but then again, I don't think anyone is.
Nope.
So I definitely see Thornton and Kopitar kind of canceling each other out, and that should leave the good matchups for the second line. And I mean, even if they go against Couture, I mean, Couture struggled last year. I mean, I don't know if it was Marlowe. I mean, Marlowe might have been the reason, but he's still with them. So I think that's definitely a winnable matchup. Even if that's the matchup they get, and if it's not, they get bottom six matchups. So I think the one thing you have to worry about with LA is their playing style just doesn't really yield itself to great fantasy production most of the time. I mean, I know we always say that shooting percentage regresses to the mean, but LA is constantly below average in shooting percentage, so I don't think we can just assume they get back there to the middle just because they should. I think at this point we have to think that maybe there's something about the way they play, just the dump and chase, that yields lower than average shooting percentages.
Yeah, it's definitely fair, and perhaps that could be a thing. But I think that just from watching Carter and Toffoli, I think that your statement holds more true to the top line. That line often with Kopitar and Gabrick, you see them playing a really slow pace. But this Toffoli and Carter line with Pearson, I mean, these guys just play end-to-end hockey, and they also can dominate possession once they set up in a zone. So I just think these guys are going to break out big time this year. But I pretty much say that all the time with this line, and perhaps I like them a little bit too much than they should be, and I'll definitely keep my eye out on their playing style because that is an interesting point. Because a lot of guys are consistently quote unquote overachievers, and a lot of guys are consistently underachievers. But sometimes maybe that's just the way they are, a product of their team. So anyway, those are the guys I'm on. Is there anyone on San Jose that you're liking tonight?
Not really. I mean, the guys on the first line with Thornton and Pavelski, and I don't think he's available on either site, so he would probably have been a cheap option. But I mean, I guess you can take Thornton and Pavelski more so Pavelski because he's a shooter there. But I don't know. I can't see them generating enough to warrant it on the road at Los Angeles. That's a pretty tough matchup.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you have Jonathan Quick in net, who's, he's not an amazing goalie, but he's still an above average goalie, in my opinion. And I know we've had some discussion about that in the past, but I think it's fair to say that taking players in LA against Jonathan Quick, against Drew Doughty types, Anze Kopitar, Jake Muzzin will be in. I just don't think it makes too much sense. And I'm glad we're on the same page there. And I guess we haven't really talked too much about defensemen on either team, so I figured we'd backtrack. Are there any defensemen that you're really liking on this slate? I find for me, I'm really on Duncan Keith a lot, Drew Doughty, and on DraftKings specifically, Chris Russell, because they give you points for block shots. And if you look at his stats last year, he wasn't even a half point per game player, and he still managed to put up so many DraftKings points just because he blocks so many shots. He led the league with 337. So, when you're blocking almost 4 shots per game or over 4 shots per game, that's the exact same worth as an assist. So I think he's a really good play over there.
Yeah, Russell's like the greatest player ever on DraftKings because he sucks just enough to block a ton of shots, and then he gets power play time and the occasional assist. So I haven't really worked on DraftKings lineups very much yet, but on FanDuel I found myself paying up mostly just because, I mean, most people are pretty cheap, and if you have the money, why not pay up for guys like Subban? Just because they're going to play heavy minutes and they're going to shoot a lot. So, I mean, Subban was definitely one. Doughty, if you can afford him. Muzzin's a little cheaper. I do like Christian Ehrhoff a little bit, because especially if you're going to be doing Carter Toffoli, because he'll probably be on the ice with them more. The Kings usually keep Doughty out there with Kopitar just to handle the big matchups. And that should leave Ehrhoff to some time with Toffoli and Carter. So that could be some correlation there, especially on FanDuel.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's a guy who's going to be told to really play more offensive-minded as a defenseman rather than having to shut guys down. And I think that him getting the power play time as well, he saw a lot at the end of preseason, although Jake Muzzin was hurt, but he did well on the power play. I was reading a lot that he looked good there. And I think he's a guy who's still going to get rewarded for that, even with Muzzin back. And don't think he'll be on the first unit, but he'll definitely be on that second unit with the aforementioned line, and he'll play with them a lot at even strength. So I do agree. I'm not sure if I'm ready to really pay up for Doughty, but I think Ehrhoff or even Alec Martinez, who's going to face even weaker competition, could be sneaky plays. But I think Ehrhoff's more suited for cash games.
Yeah, that makes sense.
All right. Anyway, I think we pretty much covered everything. If you guys have any questions in chat, I guess we can answer a few on here. And then if you guys still have questions, we still have to get to our lineups and finish them up, and we can still help you out in chat. So if anyone has some questions, I know there's about a 30-second delay from our video to the chat room. So if you guys have anything, throw them in there and we'll gladly answer them. So I guess while we're waiting for everyone to hear that, how would you rank Carey Price and Jonathan Quick tonight? I think they're the two that I'm really debating between. Which of these two guys do you like the most?
Probably Price. The one concern is just that, as I mentioned earlier, the Leafs are just going to slow the game down, and that's going to be 20, 25 shots. And that's where it really gets dangerous for a goalie, because at that point, 2 or 3 goals can really kind of hurt them. And then if they don't get the win for some reason, then you're looking at pretty much nothing from them. So I do like a little bit more shots, but we don't really have a lot of options tonight. I don't think Quick sees many more than Price does, and I think Price is the better goalie, so I'll probably go with him.
Okay, I think that's probably a fair choice. I think that one thing to keep in mind is that Quick is a fair amount cheaper, and I think if you can upgrade a skater, that's really worth it. I think you can go for it and use Jonathan Quick safely. But I think both goalies are the play. Someone in chat is asking us Carey Ramo or Carey Price. I'm going with the Carey with the C. I think that's a pretty fair choice if we're throwing away how much each of them cost.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not including Price, but I talked about Ramo in my article today. Actually, I mean, he isn't good, but something that doesn't matter. He's the cheapest goalie you can get on both sides. I mean, he's probably going to win, and the Flames don't take penalties, and that's a big thing for goalies, because even though he's not great at even strength, I want a goalie playing as much at even strength as possible. The fewer power play shots he faces, the better, because you don't get any extra points for them, and they're more likely to go in. So, I mean, there is some value to never being shorthanded, which Calgary does very well.
Yeah, that is definitely true. I think that it pretty much just depends on your lineup. I don't have a problem with using Ramo, but player questions in hockey are hard to answer, especially when they're at a different price point, because it really depends who you have on your team that's making Carey Price fit, or who you're sacrificing Carey Price to go down to Ramo for, I guess, with your upgrades. Like if you're upgrading a really good play and just overpaying for someone like Rick Nash, not to pick on him because he's still a great player, but I don't think he's like an optimal play tonight. If you're doing that, I'd rather drop Nash down and use Price. But I think that both are solid plays, and I think Price, Ramo, or Quick, I think those are the only 3 guys you can really be choosing between tonight. I also have another question. Teravainen or Semin? I'm going to Teravainen. I know you like Semin, so which one are you choosing?
I'll take Semin. I think he's going to have a big year. I mean, he's proven production. Teravainen will likely be very good, but I think Semin's going to have a big year, and he's very underpriced right now. But I guess you could say the same for Teravainen.
Yeah, so we pretty much just didn't help you at all, Cokeburn. Sorry, man. Let me see what else we have. Belts Wielden Dad is asking us Pacioretty, Semin, Doughty, and Price versus Hossa, Toffoli, Subban, and Quick. I like number 2 a lot more.
Yeah, I like number 2 as well.
I think that it's a little bit more balanced overall. Let's see if we have any more questions. Semin and Doughty or Ehrhoff and Gallagher?
That's a tough one. I'll go the Semin side again. I mean, I think Ehrhoff's safe, but I can't really see him doing much than like a plus. Like maybe he'll get a plus or +2, like best case. But I mean, I don't think he's going to be too involved offensively outside of like a shot or 2.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that I'd actually probably go with Gallagher and Ehrhoff anyway, but I think it really depends on your lineup. I think if you have Toffoli and Carter in there, The second one makes a little bit more sense because, like you mentioned, the correlation with defenseman and forward likely to be on a lot of the time. And I'd still think Gallagher is a better play in a vacuum than Alex Semin. So I think it depends on the rest of your lineup, but just picking those two, it's real close, but I'm going with number 2. Let's see. Looks like there is.
We got one more.
Yeah.
From Crimson Rain. Lundqvist, Price, or Quick, all the same price, no points for a win.
No points for a win.
I'm assuming that's Stars Draft. At least someone's going to play Stars Draft with me.
Yeah, I'd play with you, but I'm not allowed because
no Canadians and Mirage.
No Canadians are allowed to bet
so
on
he can't play this year.
Yeah, so if you guys are on Stars Draft, you'll probably see Drew over there dominating the lobby, and he'll probably be the only
I'm in every game, so sorry.
Yeah, every game, and he'll probably get matched up with $3 of head-to-heads tonight. So good luck with your $3. But if I had to pick one, I guess pretty much facing the most shots is pretty much what you look for here. I think that quickly eliminates Price. I think just based on LA's style of play, if the win doesn't matter, it takes away Quick. And you know what? I'm going to go with Lundqvist there. I don't think it doesn't matter who wins.
I think Lundqvist is the easy choice there. I think he'll see at least 5 more shots than both those guys, if not 10.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, he did confirm that is Stars Draft, so you're not alone on that site. And I actually saw one more question up here. It was asking about if we like Vancouver's second line, and we both talked about that already a good amount. I think it's a really good line to stack in tournaments for cheap, and I think the only guy really viable, though, is Vrbata, if you're looking to pick one of those guys. So I think that pretty much covers everything, and it's 4 games. It's really cool that hockey's back, and it's really awesome that you guys are supporting us with 60 people on here for the first show. Definitely did not expect this many to be on here. So thank you guys for watching. And for Drew, I'm Warren, and we'll see you guys next time. And good luck in your games tonight.
Thanks, guys.